Just the back and forth momentum flop, but there's a big rock. Here comes Romero, but a pull counter.
There we go. We have a champion, ladies and gentlemen.
What's good, y'all? Romero 17 here. Today we're going to be covering the new update. We're going to have a patch dropping tomorrow for UFC 5. So it's going to have round 2, the big roster update, and gameplay adjustments to arrive tomorrow. So with these changes, right, we're going to have 9 new fighters. So here's an in-depth listing of the fighters, however that they're going to have it. You guys can take a look at that. I will leave a link in the description for the patch notes for this video. So the 9 fighters are going to be added tomorrow. The patch drops 10 a.m. PT. The 9 fighters that will be added: Mateus Nicolau, Bruna Jandiroba, Manel Cape, Natalia Cristina da Silva, Nasruddin Imavov, Marcin Tybura, Stefan Erceg, who's fighting for a title, Michael Venom Page, and Drew Dober. On top of these new fighters, we're also going to have some alter egos. Those will be added April 30th, 2024 at 10 a.m. PT. So here we're going to get into some of the changes gameplay wise. Now, some of these we were able to play over in Vancouver when the game changers went over to get, do some gameplay testing, because why else would we be there for? So this change right here, we got to work with some of these and it felt really good. So they slowed down the recovery of the short-term stamina. The speed changed mostly on the high end from when the stamina was higher than half. When the stamina is low, the recovery is almost unchanged. So what does this mean? Pretend this is the bar. Currently in game, you get to a certain point, it's going to recover the same all the way through. Now, you get to a certain point, it recovers fast up to a certain point, and then it's going to slow down. That's going to change a lot with regards to counters based on short-term stamina, because if you guys recall, the lower your short-term stamina is, the more increased damage you end up taking, right? The lower your short-term stamina is, the more likely you are to get taken down. And the lower your short-term stamina is, the more likely you are to take extra damage from body shots. Wink, wink. So gameplay-wise, this can be huge. It's going to change a couple things with how certain people strike, alternating between 2 shots at a time, because the stamina tends to recover real fast. I will still be also testing it out with some fighters that had marathoner to make sure that nothing weird happened there. Didn't seem like anything crazy would happen, but you guys know anything can happen, so we'll double check once this patch drops. Now, they sped up the recovery of the short-term block meter. Now, we had to be very careful with this change, because what we didn't want was a comeback to UFC 3 where people had the Super Armor Captain America block, which isn't really remotely realistic at all. But we also want to make sure that the block isn't too weak. And given a few issues that tend to happen with the block, I felt like this was a really necessary change. So it's going to help. Same thing, block meter. Usually when it gets down to around 0, it takes a while for it to recover, which I personally thought didn't make too much sense. If it's going to work like that for the head health, it needs to work the same way for the for the block health. Just logically speaking, you feel me? So brought it up to them, they're like, yeah, that makes sense. So ended up doing that. They ended up buffing the block a good amount, where I felt that you're still going to be rewarded for good offense, but defensively it's going to help people out a lot. So we're going to see how this is going to work out. I personally think it's going to be very clean. This is the build that we got to play on day 2, so I'm excited for this. Fix an issue that would allow head movement to evade body uppercuts. Voila. Sped up the execution for several strikes at higher weight classes, decreasing the speed difference. So essentially not making these strikes more telegraphed, right? Like the more telegraphed they are, it's easier to counter them. So it's going to help out some of the more dynamic fighters in those heavier weight classes. Oh, for lightweight, welterweight, middleweight, 4-frame. Oh, okay. Lightweight, welterweight, middleweight. Okay, I like that. So they have the list of the entirety of all the moves that basically getting a speed frame buff. Interesting. This one we did not get to play. Okay, so I'm iffy on this one. All right, I'm iffy on this one because we did not get to play this one. Significantly sped up the retreating roundhouse kicks to the head, body, and legs, as well as the retreating calf kicks. Although it was viable to use retreating roundhouse kicks within combos, they were extremely slow when used as single strikes. This change should make it more viable to use these kicks more safely when it is hard to create space for kicking. So this is basically another kicking buff, right? Because leg kicks had already gotten a 30% hit stun buff when you time it accordingly. But one issue I tend to have with some of these moving strikes, it says retreating, so going backwards. But I don't know about moving laterally. And I am not a fan of how some of the strikes work moving laterally with some of these kicks. So we will see how that all plays out. Now this one I have mentioned a couple times in my recent videos, slowed down the retreating rear front kick to the head. Too fast for how safe and powerful it was, and just doesn't physically, logically makes sense for how it was. Now they buffed the Superman punch for some reason, which, okay. And so wanted to buff GSP a little bit, increase the base damage to lead Superman punch from 15 to 25, decrease the vulnerability of the lead Superman punch by 20%, increase the base damage of the rear Superman punch from 25 to 27.5. Okay. It's going to open a variety. I'll say that much. It's going to open a variety. Now this, I actually heard about this yesterday, and I was kind of like, I don't know. They said that they shifted some properties of the body switch kick. So they said that the switch kick was too fast for its animation to play out properly. Beginning of the animation, the switch part had to be rushed. We have significantly slowed it down so the animation could look more realistic, but I thought it was slow enough, honestly. As compensation, they decreased the vulnerability and increased the damage. It makes it the most damaging body kick, along with the jumping spinning side kick to the body. Shout out Max Holloway. It also targets the open and more vulnerable side of the torso when fighters are in the same stance. If you guys have been following me for a while, you guys know this has been a thing forever. So, increase the base damage from 20 to 22.5. That bueno. Decrease the vulnerability by 25%. Okay. Significantly slow down his execution. I don't like that, bro. It felt like it was already kind of slow, but we'll see when things play out. I don't know, but I'm kind of iffy on the body switch kick change as well as the retreating roundhouse change. Just can change things meta-wise. It is a proper type of buff to kicks, so I'm all for that. But that's going to be it on the striking end for this patch notes. Grappling wise, we have ourselves some really good changes. So it seems shifted some of the stamina costs on the ground game from short term to long term. This has been long requested because people relatively camp on the denials, because these denials on the ground are way too excessive for such little actions, which I've spoken about plenty of times, especially being somebody that grapples in real life. So they've made some adjustments to the short-term stamina cost by 10%, includes a drain rate from the struggle in submissions. Now this might be a case where they might have overdone something and to then try to cut it down to where it would be perfect, because increase the long-term stamina cost by 20% and at 8%. So that means that the actual long-term cost of an action will be 8% higher than those before these changes. I don't know. We did not play this build, a build that had these grappling changes. So I don't know how that's all going to play out. It can lead to a lot of good things on the ground. It can open up a lot of windows for more scrambles and whatnot. I would love for them to adjust the contextual transition windows for a lot of things that happen on the ground to really open up the grappling, but we shall see. Now, a couple of these are changes with regards to, some buggy fixes and over-under and the clinch. Certain issue that prevented fighters from walking into tower on feet on hips position in practice mode, and it made a change to Jilton Almeida's character model. Now, gameplay-wise, still want to see some adjustments. Footwork wise, I want to see some adjustments to some of the lateral moving strikes. Hitstone wise, certain things need to be adjusted in my personal opinion, and of course there's definitely some cases with some counter shots, but we're gonna see how this is all going to play out tomorrow. So that'll be I'll judge how this patch is going to be. The new fighters are going to be great. Alter egos getting added. You guys can go ahead and guess who that's going to be or whom it will be. But I'm excited for this patch tomorrow. Once it drops, I will be streaming immediately. So, as always, from Rest 17, I appreciate y'all. Much love, take care, and have a wonderful week.